And welcome back to Chambers, Changes, and Conversations, where local government isn't just policy and paperwork, it's people, progress, and powerful stories. We're here to pull back the curtain on what's happening in Manatee County and dig into the issues that matter to you. I'm Communications Division Manager Casey Zempel, joined by Government Relations Director Stephanie Garrison, and today we're welcoming a commissioner whose style is refreshingly direct, deeply grounded in rural values, and laser-focused on transparency. Commissioner Carol Ann Feltz, representing District 1, proudly represents 8 generations of Floridian lineage, with ancestry rooted in both conch and cracker traditions. She was elected in 2024 and brings a distinct background rooted in ranching, small business, and advocacy for Florida's agricultural communities. She's known for being accessible, speaking plainly, and listening closely, especially to the 73,000-plus residents in East Manatee and our rural areas. In her first 6 months, she's already made a name for herself as a no-nonsense voice on the board with a heart for smart growth, safe roads, and ethical leadership. Commissioner Feltz, welcome to Chambers, Changes, and Conversations.
Thank you.
Now, over the years, and we were talking about this a little bit on the pre-show, you've worn many hats, from auditing and acquisitions in the private sector to Florida history enthusiast, experienced genealogist, and now commissioner. Which part of your background do you find yourself drawing on most in this role?
That's a great question, because sometimes I really don't know. I think more than anything else, I really have to say more than anything else, I stand as a Floridian. It brings in so much that is just an innate knowledge. And, the dollar signs and the functions of government and things like that, you've got to have an understanding of where you're at and where you came from, and where it's possible to go, and sometimes where it's not such a good idea to go. And just having that background and just knowing how Florida has evolved to where we're at now, I think that gives you and it's a unique knowledge. So I think with this board, we have such a well-balanced board now that it seems to be the right place for me in this zone. That's a very easy fit for me.
Welcome, Commissioner. When you talk to residents in District 1, what do you hear most often? What's on the minds of people in Myakka and in Parrish?
It really is as we know, District 1 is larger land-wise than the rest of Manatee County combined. As we know, District 1 has seen probably more changes in the last 8 to 10 years than any other place in Manatee County. This also, with the redistricting of District 1 in 2020, it put together 2 places that were very, very polar opposites. In Myakka, you find people who are concerned about growth, but it hasn't really affected them as much. I mean, they may think so, but not nearly as much as it's affected what used to be our other rural area, which was Parrish. People are very concerned about traffic issues. They're worried about stormwater issues. There are so many HOAs that they're worried about a lot of their HOA issues, which are outside of our realm. So I think that's probably traffic being a very overall concern of everyone in the county, our stormwater issues, and the quality of our water. Now, of course, we have to add garbage to that, and schools, and when you grow as fast as we have in District 1, there's a lot of things we might have wanted to do differently, but we have to deal with what we have right now.
As Casey mentioned, you were recently elected last fall in 2024. Has there been a moment in the past half year that you're like, yes, I'm exactly where I need to be?
I don't say that as much as other people might encourage me and say, you're right. In fact, there's that sign in my office that says you belong here. That was, a gift. I didn't expect to do this way. I always thought that there would be somebody bigger, faster, stronger, smarter that would take this on. But the truth of the matter is that I kept at it. I wasn't going to give up. And there wasn't anybody else really stepping up. And there are days, trust me, there are days that being an activist was a lot more fun than being a commissioner. I felt that I was getting more done sometimes as an activist versus the bureaucracy, or at least, you tend to lose a little bit of your constitutional rights becoming a commissioner. You can't say things or do things as you used to do them. But I don't think that it's changed. I've always had the ability to see both sides of a situation just because I leaned more to one than the other. And but there are days that you feel like I was better on the outside than on the inside. But now that's not what was chosen for me. And so now it's just the best part is when you can actually be effective, when you can actually solve a problem, or you can work directly with staff to address an issue and you come up with something really good. Those are the best days.
So let's go back to the beginning, at least, of being a commissioner. Anyone in attendance or watching at home could tell that your swearing-in ceremony was an incredibly emotional experience for you. And for good reason. It took perseverance, multiple campaigns, a lot of grit to earn your seat on the board. What kept you going through that journey, and what inspired you to keep showing up until you turned those efforts into a spot on the dais?
There is a motto that was instilled in me by, a lot of influential people, but I think the one that stands out was, if it is to be, it is up to me. And you could fuss, you could fight things, you could do all kinds of stuff, but the thing is, you got to do it. You got to get in there and work for solutions and work for understanding and work for stuff. You've just got to do things yourself before you could blame or judge or criticize what other people are doing. Get in there and do it yourself. Walk a mile in somebody else's moccasins and put yourself in their place. Learn about every side of the story. And if it is to be, you better be the one to be in there and being part of getting it done.
You ran on a message of rural voices matter. What does that look like in action? And how are you making sure that those voices are truly heard at the county level?
Manatee County is, okay, this is the thing about Florida, that we hold a unique geographical place. Our first tourists in Florida, our first snowbirds in Florida, whatever you want to call it, were farmers. Finding a way that, you could grow strawberries in Maine certain times of the year up there and then other times of the year down here, that was our first tourists. That was what basically Florida was seen at, because between not having air conditioning or DDT to kill the mosquitoes, nobody was really looking at it as, the beaches, tiki bars, and Disney World. So it really always was an agricultural area. And it's a delicate environment in which we can produce food for people. And Manatee County has always been an agriculturally centered area. There is land out there available for farming. There are people that still want to farm. And here's the thing of it. Somebody's got to, or else we can't eat. And I think that we've got to be cognizant of that, and it has always been a pillar of Manatee County's economy, legacy, culture, whatever. I think that it's a little bit different today. We tend to we need to get more production out of smaller plots of land, but there's more of a interest in where our food comes from, whether it's healthy for us or not, and just those open spaces that we need for people to breathe, and for our other elements that make Manatee wonderful, our wildlife, our open spaces, things like that. But most of all, we've got to eat. And I think that the best defense of having a strong America is to take care of ourselves and not rely on imports.
So you've brought a very values-based approach to the board. Clear priorities, honest talk, a lot of listening, and the occasional whip crack. You've said before that transparency isn't a slogan, it's a habit. What does that habit look like in your daily work as a commissioner?
We love to educate, inform, and involve our constituents. If you ask us a question, we're not just going to hand you the answer. Definitely a believer in teaching a man to fish versus handing him a fish. Because if we just answer your question, we haven't given you the full service. So we're going to not just answer your question, but we're going to teach you how to find the answers to your questions, whether it's using the county website, whether it's giving you the direct name and number of the staff person who, I always get amused when we get an email from someone and then I forward it to someone and then they forward it to someone and then they forward it to someone. And our staff is accessible. Our staff is very accessible. You just have to know who to talk to when about what. So we really like to, that's one of my favorite things is if you ask us a question, you're going to get not just an answer, but an education. And then what we hope is that you take that information and you tell your neighbor, and then your neighbor tells somebody. And pretty soon we've got a very educated constituency. So now they can answer their questions amongst each other and know how they could be involved and know how they could identify a problem and offer us a solution in such a way that they already understand the system or they already understand the problem in depth, that their solutions and are, we love for people to come to us and say, hey, have you ever thought about doing this or that? But if they don't understand the background of something or how things could get accomplished, you're not really arming them. So what we're trying to do is make sure that we have encouraging people to go to our Citizens Academy, coming to town halls with being able to demonstrate our GIS mapping systems, trying to provide links to our website when we answer a question so they could look up the CIP projects. And that part is very fulfilling, and it's been very productive because I think we've got some really smart people in District 1, which you can tell. We're the ones that are, well, of course, everything takes place in our district, but, they're the ones that are calling in. They're the ones that are up at the podium. They are the ones that are submitting the emails. And I love it about my people. I think that they're all, I hope I have passed on the passion, for however long they've been here. We are getting so many people that are in places that, a few years ago I was at the podium protesting about where you're living right now. But now they're seeing, you're right. It would be nice to have a little bit more green space, or maybe we do need a county park. And you're getting what I call the second wave, the second generation of people who have really grasped how community involvement and involvement with your local government is important. We have a certain, I've said this before, your county commissioner is your first line of representation in government, your first line. And if you don't know what they do, and they can't be accessible to you, we talk a lot about, getting in touch with our state legislators, but it starts here.
So I love that, empowering people. I've heard you talk many times about the importance of civic education and just empowering people with more information and transparency. How do you help the public understand that, public service comes with a lot of tough decisions? And how do you weigh the competing needs of growth, budget, and the resident expectations?
Well, there was a clear directive given to whomever was going to be the county commissioner for District 1. And it was just say no. That was a very clear directive. Now, can you always just say no? It's not as simple as that. But I still remember who my bosses are. And I have to remind my bosses that I have 73,000 bosses. But you know what? That's everybody. That's representing everybody. And that's what you still have to do in this job. 72,000 people can write to you and shout and say, say no, say no. But you're still responsible for representing 73,000. And there's 1,000 that aren't saying, say no. And one day you may be in that minority versus a loud majority. And you want somebody that can see both sides of the equation and then making people understand this is why saying no now isn't the best idea, or that it's not reasonable to expect that. On the other hand, you have to explain to the other side too. So when you say just say no, for any of our new residents, what did that directive say no to? Elaborate more on that. Everyone knows this, so it's not even, the bottom line is that growth has happened, and it's always been this way in Florida, but that's not a good excuse. Our infrastructure is always behind our residential construction. And I mean, I've never gone to a school in Florida that wasn't overcrowded. Even brand new schools, they're overcrowded before they open the doors. But we've really reached the point in my district where that lack of supporting infrastructure has really caused issues in the quality of life for people. It cannot be ignored anymore. I mean, we got a knock on the head with the 3 hurricanes, our traffic accidents. We just recently had a really nice report on traffic instances and fatalities. My district has fatalities. It's not where you have little fender benders or things like that. And it's speed. It's the functionality of the roads. It's the capacity of the roads. So we've gotten to a point out east or in District 1 that there was so much growth without the infrastructure keeping up and not having a chance to really plan it out well, that's the most important thing to most people out there. And that's why we've asked to address those things. And it doesn't mean you say no to everything, but if you say, well, we want to do this, but we're going to need this to be done, or this will be done one day that will facilitate that one day is now. All of those things that we said for the past 10 years, well, one day we'll have this and that will make this all better. That one day is now. And we got a little bit behind in that. So,
I mean, you just touched on it, safer infrastructure in rural areas. We had this conversation before because we have a loose outline, Stephanie and I do. And you can always tell the the people who are really in tune with the conversation, because they
already know.
they start getting ahead, and you did exactly that. But talking on that safe infrastructure in rural areas, is there any one project or funding opportunity right now that you're maybe especially excited about, or that's perhaps flying under the radar that more people should know about?
What we just went through our budget session, and there were 815 capital improvement projects. We did get the nice presentation where we narrowed it down by district. And what I'm looking at with that is, and I asked Sheila to prepare this thing to have this kind of conversations. First, we have to look at what is absolutely essential. Absolute essential. And that may have different meanings. It could be a project that's almost completed, but, maybe we need a little bit more funding for it. Or it's one that we're in such a far state of the design or those stages that it's time, you don't want to just leave that money lying there. So I said, first off, the absolute essentials. Absolute essentials. There are some things that may not be popular because I'm looking for essential infrastructure, essential capital improvement projects. I hate to say it, but sometimes a boat ramp and a skate park is not essential. Second thing is, like I said, those things that were promised years ago that we built based on those promises, but those promises never came to fruition. So let's get those taken care of. So I think that will improve a lot of the transportation issues in our community is completing those projects. And the last one was needs. I know there's a lot of things that we want, but we really need to focus on District 1 with the essentials, the contingency concurrency projects, and the needs. The wants will come as we go along, but I don't want to see people killed on our highways. I don't want to see people flooded out in their homes because we wanted something. I think it's quite prudent, and I think everyone understands that sometimes you have to address the essentials before you get into the fluff.
You've been very vocal about making growth responsible in this topic you're already touching on here. Can you share a recent example of a decision where maybe you pushed back or you helped reshape a project to better fit these needs?
Well, we just haven't caught up with remember, I've been around in this a while, and new homes and new construction is part of our Manatee County economy. We might have leaned a little bit too far from about 2008 forward to assist the housing industry, and I want to bring it back to what we say, back to plumb. Okay, not veering in the other complete different direction, because that doesn't do anybody any good. So I think that a few things that we've tried to do. One was, the repeal of the 2.1.2.8 amendment. There is no way possible that this county can double the size of its water and sewer services, because essentially going over that FDAB with the continuous land, you've just said that you're going to supply water and sewer to every single resident in Manatee County. Not that there's that many out there back right now, but there's no way we could have made that promise. There's no way. And I think by pulling that back, we can put the focus more on fixing the issues that we have. And we have, I'm the only district that doesn't have a municipality within its district, which is weird because it's the largest one land-wise, but there's no cities. It's all a county out there. And our cities need some help. our city of Bradenton has got some rusty pipes there, and they could use some help because they're going to be dumping their sewage into the same water that we all drink. So we had to be a little bit prudent. There's reasons why that pullback of that 2.1.2.8 amendment was very important. It was a matter of honesty and transparency to the developers, too. We lied. We couldn't do it. We'd like to do it for you, but we can't do it for you. We can't afford to do it for you. We don't even know how to do it for you. But help us out. I do believe there are some public-private partnerships that could work for everyone. But we've got to have that understanding that we're all going to have to pay our fair share of this, and we move that pendulum just a little bit too far in one direction in our enthusiasm, in our need at the time. I mean, everybody was coming to Florida. You have the usual reasons that people come to Florida, and then when we had COVID, but where people are moving around more, Florida's going to have always going to have somewhat of a transient thing, but we can't keep going the way we were going without it creating a problem. And I think this board is very good about bringing it back to center and not pushing it into the, let's just ban everything. But we do need to have some prudency with that. And it's very different with each district. No, I would not expect someone in District 2, 3, or 4 to understand why we like the word moratorium in District 1 and 5. So we're fine with that. We'll take the moratorium, and you guys just build your little selves away. But at the same time, again, there are other things. I don't think a moratorium is going to cause great economic collapse to Manatee County, and especially if it's only for one district or one type of thing. There's ways that it can be done. But I think what we're doing is getting to that without, we could always say no. We could always say no.
So you've spoken very passionately about the Cracker Trail, and I've had the privilege to see firsthand the importance you place in preserving Florida's rural and agricultural traditions. In a county growing like ours, how do you think we can honor and protect those cultural touchstones while still preparing for the future?
Well, it's funny because all the golf courses that we are developing in East County lend themselves to a cracker motif. And so, like I said, everybody wants to be a cowboy till it's time to do cowboy stuff. And I just find it interesting that everybody, they kind of like the idea of it. But on the other hand, it's not just as easy as putting a picture of a cow on the wall of your clubhouse. But I think there's a great marriage of it out there. I think there's some great opportunities out there. Agritourism, we look at the golf courses as many of them are becoming much more environmentally friendly, because remember, those are big green spaces too, and they may not be pasture space, but and what people don't understand about, nobody is going to dump more chemicals onto something than they actually need. And there's ways we do want to protect our waterways. That is always a concern. But the truth of the matter is that there are very few pristine, virgin areas out there. If you dig into any of the soils, whether you grew orange trees there or there was a dump there before, there are very few untouched places. So before we rant and rave about this is going to bring this in and this is going to bring this in, there was probably something there before too that needs a cleanup. And But I think there's some opportunities out there in our end of District 1 and in my other end of District 1 is Parrish. Great places to complement each other.
Mm-hmm. So talk about that. So of these like opportunities, what kinds of businesses or development would you welcome in District 1? And, what would that look like?
Well, we have a couple of, we have, our dairy out there that has a tourist element to that. We've got a lot of the animals with the Paradise Ranch and the Elephant Ranch. There are still a lot of people who board horses, show horses. Terra Nova is a very, very big part of the area out there. But we do have to have the transportation to bring people out there, places for them to stay, gas stations. It's really, we don't have the supporting infrastructure out there either to support large scale type entities. But it's coming. And it also, I think that, I think the experience out there, you're going to find a lot of good old American capitalism where you might have B&Bs instead of a Hilton. So something where you're truly immersed in it. You're not just, going from a Marriott out to the country. You've got B&Bs, you've got campgrounds, you've got places where you're truly submersed in that kind of thing. Or we offer that transportation back and forth, where if you want to stay at the Marriott, but then go slum it at a chicken ranch in Myakka City, we'll take you back and bring you out there, nice and clean. There's also I think that what people are begging for in some parts is they want places to go and something to do. So we want to give them something to do. Entertainment areas out there, I would love for us to have a type of sports arena that's more geared to rural type of sports.
Like what?
You could have bull riding, you have horse shows, you have dirt bikes, you could have an ATV track, which is, just a nice mud hole to run around in, that kind of thing. There's a lot of entertainment that, of course, we tend to make our entertainment ourselves versus being entertained. Music venues, those type of things that will draw people. Everybody in Parrish is always, well, what is there to do? What is there to do? Our fair is, a couple times a month, but we could have standing opportunities there. I imagine that, maybe dad and mom golf and the kids I'd love to see us have a zoo. We don't have really anything like that on this side of the bay until I think you get down to Cape Coral or Naples or Fort Myers and all that. And that would be wonderful to have a zoo. We already have a zoo out there as far as all the individual things, but bringing that all together, and a music stadium and maybe a sports type of arena too. There's some big expanses of land that's needed for that, but what is the holdback on a lot of it is having that transportation out there and having those roadways out there.
One thing that I love that I think is like a hidden gem is Jig's Landing. And I'm going to kick myself because my parents, every time they come down here from Wisconsin, I put them up there. But you get to stay in the old fishing cabins, and you're right on the water. You have music, you have... we rent it out to somebody. Basically, the county rents it out to somebody, and they handle all the food and stuff. Like, I feel like that model could be replicated throughout the county and not just in one specific area. Anywhere where there's water, you could put something like Jig's Landing.
Yep.
So.
Well, all of our campgrounds or our state parks are always full. I know that Hunsader's always full, years in advance. So there's definitely a desire for that. And there are little spots in there, if you get to B&Bs and wedding venues and things like that. It's so many alternatives, and we can't put everybody on the beach at one time. And it gives people something to do. I think you'll find it could be a destination place. Right now, we don't have anything to say in District 1, to make it a destination spot. But if you put together that type of package, it does become a destination spot. The balance is being able to offer entertainment and a destination type of area without destroying what people are coming out there to watch and do and see. If you get to, well, I want a 4-star hotel, down the street from the chicken farm, that's not going to work for us. You know what I mean? If you've got to kind of get into that immersing or the day trip and then go back to your beachside hotel kind of thing.
Yeah, but we're talking a lot about land, and you're someone who lives on it, fights for it. What's one thing that you wish more people understood in Manatee County about rural land use or just agriculture in general?
Well, this is the funny thing, is that I live on 10 acres. I don't consider that land. I mean, that's my yard size, okay? So remember but then, and I think that's what, when I started running for office, I didn't realize that there was such a difference between, I used to live in West Bradenton. I was brought up in the suburbs of Little Havana, Miami. But this has been my neighborhood for 25 years out there in Myakka. And that doesn't mean I can't relate to all of that stuff. But when people say things like, I'm a landowner and I'm a farmer, no, I don't, not comparatively speaking whatsoever at all. But I will tell you that some of the things that you understand things more. I have wells and a septic tank, okay? If I don't have water, guess who has to take care of it? Me. If something happens wrong with my septic tank, guess who has to take care of it? Me. Now, that might just be calling up somebody and, I'm not saying I'm, the handyman or anything, but it is a big difference from people who are used to, well, I turn the faucet on and the water comes out, and if it doesn't, then I call the county and, somebody else takes care of this. It does give you that perspective on anything. And I think that is one of why people think that they forget that I was raised in the suburbs in Miami. They forget that I actually was from, lived in West Bradenton. They forget that I'm an island person. Oh, you have 10 acres. You must be a farmer, a rancher, or a cowgirl. It's like, see, for me, that's just my backyard. It's not as different. And but I still understand people who live in those areas because I was from that. But I think they put a lot on me that it's like, no, it's not like that at all. I spoke the other day with a Farm Bureau, and I was like, I don't know how this got started, but I think that it's just because people who live on that type of area out there have become such an anomaly because they're concentrated in the other areas. And when we talk about traffic and infrastructure and things like that, we have a different focus on it because, like I said, we're responsible for our water. We're responsible for our septic tanks. And that's the difference with clustered housing versus living out somewhere like that. We go to town once a week. Okay, get done everything. And when, we look at traffic studies and it says, well, this is areas that you're almost a 15-minute city, but you're going to the store in the morning and then back in the afternoon and then picking the kids up. And so, yeah, you may be close, but you're taking more trips than in a place where, yes, you're going to live 20 miles away from somewhere. You're going to go once. You're going to take care of everything at once. And I think that we could pass on some of that mindfulness. And I think that our other side of District 1 is asking for some relief from that density that's stressing them out and taxing our water and taxing our utilities. So each side has so much to learn from each other, but they assume, people assume that, if you have 10 acres of land, you've got cows and I just have land for the sake of having land. And then you say, well, wait a minute, people in this community, they can, they could do so much as a group that, we're too isolated to be able to do that. But they have so much of an opportunity to do things as a group and, form their communities and have more voices really in their communities because they're all together like that, where we end up being a little bit more isolated and ineffectual.
Oh, and that sound means we've reached our lightning round. Commissioner, just give us your first instinct to the following questions. Are you ready, Commissioner Carol Ann Feltz?
Sure.
Lightning round. And away we go. What's your favorite back road drive in District 1?
Any place not on 70 or 64.
What's one thing you always keep in your vehicle?
Oh, a bug-out bag.
Weekend ritual that keeps you grounded?
Gardening.
What's a rural issue people in urban areas should care more about?
Water.
Best kept secret in East County?
We have too many.
I'll accept it. Most down-to-earth community event that you love attending?
Anything in my own backyard.
What's the one rural upgrade you'd fast-track if you had a blank check?
I'm kind of a happy person where we're at. I listen. God has that land out there. He's pretty much got his plan.
Gotcha. And one word, describe Manatee County's future.
Sustainable is the one I'd like us to strive for. Sustainable.
Thank you for that. Did she make it in time? We got the thumbs up. All right, congratulations.
Okay, next time I'm going to have the Cuban coffee before.
You've brought a really authentic perspective to the board. I believe you're 8th generation Floridian. Is that right?
People are so tired of hearing that, though.
Before we close,
it's a shtick.
What's one way that you would encourage residents to speak up and get involved, especially for those who don't always feel heard?
We really worked really hard on getting our call-in comments. And for people, again, I have a district that the average length of residency is 3 to 5 years, so you may not remember all of this, but it was during COVID. I think there were so many things, for every bad thing, you learn something good out of it. And, during COVID, we learned that washing our hands, back to kindergarten, washing our hands, covering our mouths, we came up with so many ways. We cut down to essentials, and we had this calling common thing. And it was really great. I thought, of course, people didn't have anything to do. They were sitting at home. There was a lot. I could see how it could get tedious when you have people that call in and they really don't have anything. It's the same thing like your call-in AM radio callers kind of thing. But they took it away from us, and we didn't, realize how much we liked having that. Well, we brought that back, and we're not getting as many people. We extended it in January. We kind of changed a few of our procedures. We have calling comments before the meeting and after the meeting. Now, some people told me that, well, you should take that as a compliment because, you might be doing something right and nobody's got an issue with, anything you're doing, so that's why they're not calling in. And, but no, I don't think we're that good. I think that I like to rile up people because they should never become complacent. But we're doing some great things, and I don't want people to get complacent and stay involved and stay active. We've got so much to learn. I've got so much to learn. So use those call-in comments. At the end of the day, there's nobody there at the phones. And come on, surely you have a comment on what happened, at least in that day's meeting, right?
So, Commissioner, what is the best way for people to connect with you directly?
I have an awesome aide that we try to make it a habit. Our past commissioner in this position, of course, we didn't have a commissioner in District 1 for 8 months. And some of the things that I tried to improve, at least be better than the last guy. You're going to make mistakes, but make different ones, so than the next guy. We're really big on answering our citizens' emails. And we really encourage people to read the agendas, participate in the meetings, watch the meetings. I got y'all to put those meetings on the Facebook page, on the social media pages. There wasn't any resident that said, "Hey, wish you guys would do podcasts." But if you guys could get out there and I'll be having town halls. I love having little meetings with citizens. We have had so many small meetings, and I'd really like to say that county staff comes out. We're doing site visits. If you've got something that you're upset about, I'm not a hydrological engineer, but I'll find one on the county staff, and getting our staff out there on these sites where we're having problems is I am so appreciative, and it really makes our citizens feel heard, because it's not one thing for me to answer an email. Okay, I've got to send that email down the line, or Selena's got to send the email down the line. And so if we can connect our citizens with the people in the departments that are doing those jobs, they're so accessible. They're so good with our citizens. Because District 1 is so large, because there are so many things that really just pertain to District 1, we've asked for our staff to set up a page for District 1. And we're working on getting information there that is only pertinent to District 1, talking about items on the agenda that are pertinent to District 1, but we've got to get y'all involved with it. And I want it to be we're going to have videos that we'll be showing on there, and it's a place also that we want this to stay longer. I don't want a county commissioner page. I wanted a District 1 page. A District 1 page.
And this is a pilot we're trying as a subset
Yes,
page.
District 1, so don't mess it up for everybody else. Behave yourselves, contribute, be a part of it. But remember, we're here to this is an experiment. We're here to set a precedence with how we can get communication tailored to the people in an area. The nice thing right now about Manatee County is our districts are each having their own character and their own flavor. And I wanted that to come out, and I wanted it to be a place where everyone can contribute. Where I'm long gone and out of this position, I want our District 1 presence to be there, so we have a continuity of that community.
So you can find that online. It's District 1, Manatee County Government. You can see that on Facebook and follow. Definitely encourage you to follow that page if you live.
And follow the main Manatee County page as well.
Absolutely.
Well, we appreciate what you guys are doing. I have felt that communication is probably the most important thing, and our transparency. And the thing is, people, that it has to work both ways. I'm working very hard on getting mandatory neighborhood meeting for zoning changes. We know about our larger signs, our citizens' academies to get people engaged and knowledgeable about how local government works. But if we bring all these things to you, the public needs to do their job. Make those calling comments. Show up to the meetings. Take part in these things. If you don't use it, you lose it. And if you don't use it wisely, right, then it gets taken away from you. So we really want our citizens, this is your first line of representation in government. If you can't make a difference at this end, somebody's not doing their job right. And that's either us or you.
There's one more thing we have to talk about that we haven't touched on today, and that is we have to talk trash, Commissioner.
Okay.
We've got to talk trash because you've been one of the most vocal with our team and really helping us with communication strategy to make sure that everyone knows about the big bin changes coming this October. So, Casey, maybe summarize real quickly what those changes are, and let's talk to Commissioner Feltz about that.
So the county is going to be providing people in unincorporated Manatee County with a 96-gallon garbage bin, and those deliveries are going to start in August. They're going to wrap up in October. Individuals can start using the bin right away when they get it. It's bigger. It's able to fit more things. And then we're going to be going to a single-day service. So it's going to be your garbage, your recycling, and then your residential debris as well, all picked up on one day, making it pretty convenient if you were like me and you had multiple days where everything's like Tuesdays garbage, Wednesdays is recycling. So one trip out to the curb. And we've been communicating this. I know you were just on Channel 7 last week, and Commissioner, I think you were the first commissioner to climb inside the garbage can the garbage bin at one point. It's huge. But yeah, so, and you've obviously been taking it around and showing it off to people. What has been the feedback, the response that you've been getting from people?
In my district, that the biggest challenges are, it's again, because it's so diversified. So, and because people have to listen. Okay, we've put the stuff on television. We've put information on the website. But people need to pay attention. Again, this is your first line of representation. This contract was up last year. We weren't paying attention, so people had all the opportunity in the world last year to go up before the board and say, well, I think it could be done this way, or here's a suggestion here. So there's an onus on both sides of that maybe when this came about last year, we weren't as communicative, and maybe when people didn't, they didn't participate in being part of the process. So there's some things that are kind of unique out there. Our rural pickups are a little bit unique, and we have HOAs that have rules about when your garbage can could go out and when it has to be brought back in, that you can't keep it outside. It's got to fit into your home. We came upon a standard of this 96-gallon one because better to be too big for some than too small for others. But there was a whole bunch of complexities in it. And I don't fault we were really caught between a rock and a hard spot. There's only so many companies that do this anymore. And we'd already extended that contract without a raise. I mean, put yourself in their shoes, right? But we needed to tweak it. We needed to get some work done on it. So I understand that my citizens have reported to me. They've made suggestions. I think the other day we had county staff actually driving along with waste management to identify these areas where people are going to have issues. And with every challenge, again, a little bit of American ingenuity, a little bit of American capitalism, and think about it. And I think it will make us think. In the suburban areas, there is a choice of getting a smaller container. We don't have any jurisdiction over HOAs, but the HOAs themselves are going to have to come to some method of compliance with it. I think out east, we may have some places that they may be getting improved service because we're actually looking at areas where before the trash had to go at the corner, but the recycle came door to door. Well, we identified those areas, so now maybe we'll be able to put those two places together. Having dumpsters instead of places where every size garbage can and things on the side of the road. And maybe we need to think ourselves. This is what, we are changing, that everything has to be in the can and, your pickups outside the can. Well, now's a great time to start cleaning out those barns and garages and think about your packaging, and reducing the garbage, I think that's the why the rural area was a little bit different. And, people are like, well, we're going to have all these feed bags. And it's like, you have feed bags. I use my feed bags for trash. You don't use your feed bags for trash. And then but, you go to my house and why do you have 5 broken weed eaters? I don't know, because I break them, but maybe there'll be parts on one that, that's the farm thing. You save things so that you could use the parts on the other. We've always had burn barrels, but I think that we have to be cognizant of teaching people the proper use of it.
And what you can and can't
and
burn.
what you can or can't burn. There's a lot of recycling that you could do with what you feed, your chickens, your pigs, your whatever out there. I don't. So we could cope with this. Communication is the thing, and that understanding for what we pay for garbage. I understand that it's going to be reduced. Well, I'm going to pay the same thing, but I'm only going to get one service. Come on. For $25 a month.
$23.65.
Yeah, what do you really expect? Now, if you think that you could have a business where you could pick up people's garbage for $23.65, do it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Go for it, But I think I really appreciate that everybody's been addressing this directly. And the worst thing we could have done was ignore it, because it was still going to be there. And nobody has done that. This staff has been working so hard on this with me. Of course, I am a little persistent.
Yes, we welcome it. And we look forward to going to your town halls. And, Commissioner, if there's any residents that want to address specific concerns with their HOA, staff is willing to meet with them. I'm happy to send my team, happy to go myself. We can work that out with anyone. So please, if you get any resident concerns, questions, our team is here to support you in that. You might be hearing from me.
And I'm glad you recognize the complexity of it, because it's 187,000 people
Households.
that we are serving, households that we're serving. So, we're talking a large swath of people. And then obviously there's challenges in your district specifically. So we're glad that you're taking those on head on.
And there's one more important thing for any of your listeners, especially if there is a unique need because of the way that their road is situated or the way that their community collects and sits out their garbage, please send in your actual address. Let's get specific. We will have someone from staff visit there to actually look at that specific
And remember,
location.
we've always offered for anybody with a disability, a handicap, medical condition, we have always offered that for our citizens. And that's always something that's doable.
That's right.
And something that's not going to change with this program. It's always existed. It's not going to change with this program. It's just that people have to be routed to the right division, the right department to do that. But I think that we're that's some of the concerns in our manufactured home areas in District 1, that we want to make sure that people know that there is a service that will help you. You don't have to struggle with the 96-gallon can. We can help you with that.
Yeah, and that's bigbin@mymanatee.org. If you want to send us an email, like Stephanie was recommending, tell us about your specific instance or situation, so we can tackle that and we can make it a solution that works for you and anybody living on your road. Or mymanatee.org/bigbin. We've got an evolving FAQ page that lets you know some of the questions that we've been hearing and the way we've been responding to those questions. So we certainly appreciate it. That pretty much wraps things up for this episode of Chambers, Changes, and Conversation. A big thank you to Commissioner Carol Ann Feltz for joining us and for doing work that matters. If there's a topic or leader you'd like us to feature, let us know by emailing or commenting. From the county seat and on behalf of the people behind the scenes doing work that matters for you, I'm Casey Zempel.
I'm Stephanie Garrison.
And I'm Carol Feltz.
Make it a great day to live, work, and play in Manatee County. The opinions expressed by guests of Chambers, Changes, and Conversations do not necessarily reflect those of Manatee County government or its employees.